Having varied interests and habits and building that into my daily routine actually makes my work more productive. I'm more efficient. It's this weird thing that you need to learn. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Well, I'm going to join in.
Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs like too short to play it on speed run.
All right, Chris, my brother. What is on the docket today for reinvention? What are we talking about?
Today, man, we're talking about an issue that might not be obvious to people when they're reinventing their career, but it's critical to proactively address, especially if you're launching your own business after years of working in a corporate environment. And that is loneliness. Because at the beginning of the reinvention process, most of us are really excited. We're hanging our shingle. We're building our new business. We're finally getting away from that guy in the office who stops by to chat at 4:59 every day. And that initial burst of excitement propels us for a little bit. But then usually we find ourselves all alone, building this new concept from scratch. There's no one to bounce ideas off of. There's no spontaneous water cooler conversations, and it's really easy to fall into this lonely, unproductive space. Your only friend is ChatGPT. You start to miss that guy who stopped by to chat at 4:59. And this isn't unique to reinventors, right? This is actually in our society right now. We've heard this phrase, the loneliness epidemic. And for the people suffering from it, it's not just feeling bad or feeling lonely. It causes significant mental and physical health challenges, increased stress, heart disease, early onset of dementia. I read this one study that said that consistent isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
No way.
I don't know how they measure that. I mean, I figure you should just find a friend and smoke 14 cigarettes with them. But anyway, so today we're talking about how to take a proactive approach to avoid becoming a statistic in the loneliness epidemic, how to leverage technology as a force for connection instead of isolation, and some other strategies you can use to build community and support networks, enabling you to live a more connected and vibrant life through your reinvention. And Todd, I know you've got a lot to say on this topic, so what's coming up for you, man?
This is huge. Even though we all know about the loneliness epidemic, I don't think a lot of people employ strategies and practices and tools on a daily basis to combat it. And so because I've had 15, actually closer to 20 years of working for myself, by myself, like in my own house or apartment with my own computer, I have a lot of experience designing my life in this way. And so I know a lot of people first hit this during COVID. We're all at home and what are we going to do? And now it's still lingering. And so for me, I want to be able to give y'all some really practical tools to battle this loneliness thing. Okay. And I think a lot of people don't really understand because like you said, it's very exciting to reinvent your career. It's like, oh my God, like our whole premise is that your next future can be your very best if you design it around the life and the version of yourself that you want to become and not your old past. There's a lot of freedom and opportunity in that. But what happens along the way is that once you get off the treadmill, all of a sudden you have all this freedom and you're thinking creatively. And then you realize, oh my God, like I feel kind of lonely. Like I'm sitting in front of my computer. I miss people, like you said, the water cooler guy, whatever it might be. And so we want to give practical tools today because you've got to be proactive. You need to actually take new types of action. And that's the first recommendation, okay? Before we get into some of the actual tools, Chris, is for you to combat this and look at it head on. That the way that the world is evolving, the way that things are changing, yes, it's full of opportunity for you, but you need to address your inner state. You need to address your lifestyle. You need to address your need to be around others in a variety of ways. And you need to build that into your reinvention from the very beginning. Okay. This is not a moment in time to think, oh, once I get there and I hit this new success, then I'm going to have all the freedom. No, you need to actually build in the things and the habits and the routines that we're going to talk about today from the very beginning as you're reinventing. This is huge. Okay. Because it's set and setting. How you set yourself up to succeed in your reinvention is your choice. And you need to actually look at your habits and your routines, like I said, from the very beginning and turn towards it and start building that new lifestyle now. And guess what, Chris? You may not know like what it is and how you need to operate on a daily basis. Okay. And that's okay. That's why this episode is a guide. It's an exploration, that you can start playing with some of these tools and these ideas so that way you can preempt the problems that happen later on. And they do happen later on. And I know for you, you went through this process and you're still going through it, right? Because you left the corporate hamster wheel and then you started to build your own coaching practice and you dealt with a lot of this and you're still dealing with it. So what's landing for you as we start diving into some of these tools?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a couple things right off the bat, right? So the timing of when I left initially, when I came out of a corporate role, was right before COVID. So I came out and I had the year of Chris. I was like really excited about it. And then COVID hit about halfway through and created a different situation, created a scenario where I went back into a corporate role and I was now in a fully remote role, right? So obviously there was some business travel, but it was a fully remote role. And that was a good thing for me in terms of flexibility and in terms of the way I could manage my life. I had young kids at the time, so that was all positives. But then when I moved from a corporate remote role to fully entrepreneurial, it's not really a remote role because the headquarters is right here, right? I'm at headquarters. It's just, there's no one else here. I think I didn't realize how much of a transition that actually was. Because in my mind, I was like, yeah, I've been working from home. I've been inundated with social connections with these people where I desperately wanted to get away from my desk because I had so many meetings with people. And they were digital meetings, and I don't think that those are as stimulating or as good for us as in-person meetings, but still, forced social engagement was happening all the time. And there were business trips, and there was a lot more structure around the days, weeks, months, and year. And so getting into an entrepreneurial mode where nothing really changed on the outside, but all of a sudden, I really should have been thinking proactively about how to create these connections and create this community. And I did exactly the thing you said, Todd, which is like, I just have to figure this thing out. So I have to be head down and figure out the work element of this and like, what is this business going to look like and how am I going to market it? Once I get that all down, then I'll like reintegrate and connect myself into society.
Right. And this is so common.
You know how that worked, right?
It's what people do. It's like, oh yeah, I'll figure it out. And then all of a sudden you've built up all this trajectory and these neural pathways for like literally being on your computer in your living room or in your bedroom, doing all this work. And then all of a sudden it's really hard to make the shift. So that's why you want to address this head on, right? So let's start getting into a couple of the recommendations that I've given people for the last 20 years about how to change your lifestyle of work. That's really what this is about. And number one is you need to shake it up, like where you're actually working from, right? A lot of people will just work in their living room or in their bedroom. And look, that's okay. That might be what you need to do, okay? Like for me, in the house I live in now, I have a garage office and I walk outside each day and I go into an office. It's 3 steps, but it counts, okay? Believe it or not, there's science around this. Like those 3 steps that I take outside actually matter, okay? And so shake it up. You've seen me several times working from cafes, okay? And I used to have co-working spaces. I've done that whole thing. They're great. This is absolutely necessary as you're reinventing. Like start playing with where you're actually working from. Don't be in the exact same place every single day because it's not going to spurn your creativity. You need to actually move around and you need to like go out into different places. And the next thing is that like morning walks and evening walks actually aren't just like this trite thing that, oh, that sounds like a good thing to do. They're actually really important tools, okay, that you need to integrate when you're working for yourself and you're at home in front of that computer over and over again, going for walks and actually talking to your neighbors and having some banter in your neighborhood. I mean, my wife laughs at me, Chris, because I'm like the mayor of where I live. I walk down the street to get like a cup of coffee on the weekend, actually. So this past weekend, I went to get my wife a matcha and myself a coffee. And I thought I'd be back in 5 minutes. I didn't come home for an hour and a half. Why? Right. I was talking to my neighbor. I was playing with the dog. Then I saw my buddy. And then I went here. I mean, literally, I came home 90 minutes later and she's like, my tea is freezing cold. I'm like, yeah, I'm hanging out. But this actually counts, believe it or not, like starting to recreate the need to be social because you do, and you don't have it anymore for a lot of people from the past trajectory. And you need to start being proactive around these things. And I got to tell you that it's hard for people that are midlife to start to do this because like, oh, I really have to do that. I have to go to a cafe and I have to do, oh, why can't it just be easier? But I want you to shift that mindset from the get-go and think, no, this is actually my opportunity to recreate my life and redesign how I am working on a daily basis. And the benefits are huge because it spurns creativity and you start to have conversations, and you're also talking about what you're doing to your neighbors and
Yeah.
to the people in cafes. You're practicing your reinvention by getting out there, and you're not isolating yourself. Like, isolation is a choice. And what we're saying here is that you also have a choice not to isolate. So these little things that I do matter and count. And I can say this after years of doing it, that I spend a lot of time walking my neighborhood, going to cafes, like spending time getting outside, because it helps my energy levels, my motivation levels, and my creativity.
You know, this is very analogous to some of the stuff we talked about from the physical vitality perspective to me, right? Where it's, I have this matrix in my mind of, you got to get 4 hours of work done today, so you have to sit at the desk for 4 hours straight or whatever it is, right? As opposed to, well, if you go out and go for a run, or if you go out and go to the cafe, you can get that 4 hours of work done in 2 hours because you've energized yourself, you've activated yourself, you've connected with people. It's counterintuitive, right? And I think it's certainly, for me, it comes from this inherited notion and this ingrained notion from corporate of the idea of like, work in the work box, stay in the work box. But if you look at that with a little bit of distance and you realize, actually, when you're in the corporate box, you were having lots of conversations. There were lots of equivalent breaks. I mean, again, the guy who stops by your office at 4:59, that's based on a real guy from my real past, Todd, by the way. And I'd talk to him for his half an hour or whatever it was, and then I'd go back to work for an hour while he rode the train home. You know, but the point is that did serve a social break in my day. It might not have been my choice as much, but it was one of those things that, like, that counts. But we're making a false comparison to this idea that we were sitting there for 8, 9, 10 hours straight, just like banging out the work, which is never what actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know what? It brings me back to how we got the idea for this episode, because people in our community were talking about this issue. People that came from corporate, somebody was a product leader in Silicon Valley and all of a sudden is reinventing and, you know, really excited, and was just like, I feel like I need a team around me. I need people around me and things to do, right? So we have to recreate that and remember that it's an opportunity. And here's another really valuable recommendation, okay? To think about some of these activities that are non-work related and making a habit of doing these things. And I always recommend for people, have 2 or 3 things that you do that is not work related, that just you love to do, and you're building that lifestyle now. Like, and I can give you some examples for myself. I play tennis. I play paddle tennis, actually, down where I live here in Venice Beach, right? And I go once a week and I go down to the course and I play, and I got a group, and I do it on a Wednesday at 10 because I can, because I'm choosing to have a life where my work is part of my lifestyle, right? So that's like a big thing that I do. And I've trained myself to understand that I don't work from 9 to 5, okay? I work when I want, and I work a lot, okay? You see me on Saturdays is actually a big work day for me.
You were very productive on Saturdays. I get a lot of stuff on Saturday afternoon where I'm like, oh, Todd worked for like 6 hours this
Saturday is my day. I feel it's something really interesting. Most people are like, oh my God, you work on Saturday? I'm like, yeah, I work on Saturday because I get up, I get some coffee. Like I said, I spend 90 minutes walking around talking to people. I come back, I hang out with my kid and my wife, and then I'm free. It's very relaxed, and I get a lot done because there isn't like this pressure, you know, and I get a lot done on Saturday, which then gives me time during the week to go out and do these other things like play tennis, and I do improv classes, you know, and I go to the French consulate and I take French classes. I'm like learning new things that are all a little bit different and random, and I'm doing it because I want to, but I also understand after all these years that having varied interests and habits and building that into my daily routine actually makes my work more productive. I'm more efficient. It's this weird thing that you need to learn. I think coming from the corporate world and the hamster wheel, it's like just grind for 8, 9 hours a day, inefficiently for the most part. And what we're saying here is that there's a different way to do this thing, okay? And shaking it up and getting out there and having activities and finding the times where you work really well. It's not going to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, by the way, right? It's just not.
It's interesting to me, Todd, that you haven't had a 9 to 5 job really for quite a long time.
20 years.
And yet still that structure of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday is living in your head somewhere, because the fact that you feel freer on Saturday's a made up concept that we all made up as a society, right? But there's an energy about it that's different, right? And there's the rhythm of your day. Obviously, your daughter goes to school, so you have all that stuff too. But it's just interesting how strong that structure is. Also, I want to go back for a second. I have to ask a very important question, critical for our listeners. Is paddle tennis the same as pickleball, or is that a different thing?
Don't even get me started. I'll do a whole episode on this. No.
Should we do an episode on paddle tennis?
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, pickle, has exploded. Everyone's playing pickle. Talk about good marketing. Pickle is done really good. They have an amazing marketing thing, and anyone can play it. I mean, I truly hate that sport. What am I hitting? A wiffle ball with like this thing?
It's a wiffle ball.
Paddle is like half the size of a tennis court, right? And there's also platform tennis. There's different types of tennis here.
Yeah.
And so paddle, in Venice Beach, California, it's like famous because they have these paddle courts on the ocean, on the beach there, that if you've ever been here, you kind of see them. And I started playing that because I live close by, and it is just fun, man. I mean, it is the real deal. Like the people, they have a US Open and they have tournaments, and I've played in them. And for me, I fell in love with that sport. And that's what I want reinventors to do. Find things that you're in love with and do those things and build it into your lifestyle and start shaking up this notion of when you have to work and like find your place. And by the way, the Saturday thing, this isn't just something that I do. Like I have to clear this with my wife sometimes. It's not like I could just leave my family alone on Saturdays and I don't just do it. I build it in. It's like part of how to reinvent, like having that conversation with my wife and her understanding how I am most effective and how she's most effective. This is all part of it.
I want to jump on that because that's a great point, and that's really relevant for my household, because I think you have a little bit of this too, but we have the dichotomy of the two people in this household, the two grownups in this household, of my wife is such a focused and efficient and diligent worker that like, if you tell her it's 9 to 5, she'll do 9 to 5. If you tell her it's whatever, she will just do that. I can do that to an extent, but I am more of an inspiration strikes type of guy. You saw this morning, right? Where I was like head down on something exciting for us, and I just didn't brush my teeth or eat breakfast or put clothes on. I was just doing this work for like 5 hours. And then I was like, oh, I have to meet Todd in like 8 minutes. Right. Oh God. Right. Having that agreement together, right? As you're in this more flexible world, if you're leaning into this, and we applaud that, and we want you to lean into the way you work and your work style, but make sure that you also address head on this and have this clear agreement, because you might not be able to just disappear for 4 hours in the middle of Saturday. Like that's Todd's agreed rhythm that doesn't work for everybody necessarily.
It's a work in progress, man. I mean, again, I don't know how much you're communicating kind of the way that you work best with your wife. It's a really interesting conversation to have, right? I felt people do this like, God, I can't believe I have to do this, but it's actually, you're really trying to create a life that you love, right? And that you're fulfilled and like your talents are coming out, and it works in flow with the way that you work, right? And I found that I work similar to you, like all of a sudden it strikes and I'm on, and then I need a break. And my wife is the complete opposite, okay? And so we've had to have a lot of conversations around this, where I'm like, look, this is how I work best. And I'm totally in on this family and being there. And I am in my family. I do a lot of things for my family, but I just don't work in this box. And so that is part of how we reinvent, is kind of being honest with ourselves. And then you have to have these conversations with the people where your new behaviors and activities are going to have an effect on their life and their flow. And this is like nuanced stuff, but we're really talking about, look, this life's a blip in the matrix. Do you want to live a life where you're working well and doing well and creating a lifestyle that matches your income and all that? Then you need to start looking at and breaking down these old programs and starting to create these new programs, Chris, right? And so this setting and how you're working, these recommendations are smart experiments. You need to start experimenting with getting out of the house and doing things differently, right? And I think it's a really important thing. Additionally, on that point, is mapping out times. You mentioned work trips, like getting away, getting out of the routine. And again, this has to be done, of course, if you have a family, you have to be really conscious of like your family dynamics and all that. But for me, for example, it's very important that once every quarter, I go away for a weekend by myself. And usually what I like to do is I go to Joshua Tree, and I just get an Airbnb and I go hiking and I do my thing, usually by myself. I've done it with friends, but mapping these things out, because what I found in all these years is that I have a circadian rhythm and I need to be able to fuel myself. When I go away for a weekend, it's something that I look forward to, that I'm going to be able to get some time to myself. And sometimes it actually could be like a trip with friends. We went to Chicago last year and we went to a game in Wrigley with my oldest friends. And like that also fueled me. But you want to start thinking about your time off and what you need really strategically. Of course, you're going to take a lot of vacations with your family and be there and all that. And my agreement with my wife is that she also gets to do that. Like she also does stuff like that. And I think it's just rethinking, how are we really supporting each other in relationship and family, and I think I have to have those conversations, man. I mean, it's just really important.
Well, and it's also just that reconnects you to the world, because I think that is where the isolation possibility comes in, or the loneliness comes in, especially if you're in a solo entrepreneurial situation as a reinventor. On a micro level, you're not going to that cafe during the week. You're just sitting in your home office all day long. You're really creating that isolation. But then on a more macro level, it's like you had all these structures. If you're in a corporate environment that, when I was working remotely, the headquarters was in Amsterdam. So I'd have to go to Amsterdam a couple times a year. Mm-hmm. Talk about pattern interruption, right? And shaking you up. I don't think I even really noted when I look back at it how much energy that would give me to go over there, be in a completely different lifestyle for about a week or whatever it is. And everything's shaken up, the time zone and everything, and then come back. And even though it was work, it was a break, just a break in the pattern.
That's right.
And shook things up. And, that has a physical effect on you and a mental health effect on you as well. And then if you're not getting that, you really need to consciously make room to get that, because that can also be another conversation with your spouse or partner that's not one to take lightly, to just say, hey, I'm going to go on a vacation for a couple of days by myself. So see you later.
All these things we're talking about here are not just like, I just do these things and I steamroll my wife. No, this is like years of understanding and testing it out and like just being honest about needs. What are my needs? And then also like understanding what your needs are. And sometimes the needs don't match, where she's like, I don't want you to go away that weekend because we have a birthday party for our kid and I really want you to be there. And then, okay, good. Let's compromise. Let's figure this out, right? But it's just being honest with your needs. Let me give you another kind of JEDI trick for reinvention, okay? And this is one that I think you and I also need to start employing. And it came up on a community call where one of our reinventors, she's looking to potentially open up a gym for female weight training. Really good idea. She has this great idea, right? And definitely somebody that could actually get this done. And she was asking some questions, and I just kind of got the impulse on the call to just look at the exercise and nutrition conferences, weightlifting conferences. And there's a lot of them. There's like societies that run weightlifting conferences. And I'm like, you should be going to these conferences. This is a work trip. You should be going to those conferences and meeting people. And like, you could see this light bulb went on in her. Because I think that when you're coming from a corporate environment where you had a trip to Amsterdam planned out once every quarter, every 6 months, there's something that's very awesome about that. There's this purpose. I'm getting paid to go to Amsterdam right now really well. And I'm a business guy, and you go to the airport and, you got your bag and you're looking good, and you go to Amsterdam, you call your wife, how the kids, they're good. And, like,
there is a status and a seriousness and a structure around that's built into it.
Yes. And what I'm here to tell you is like, that's awesome. Let's not fully run away from that. And so what I always recommend from people, and even you and I in our business, how can you create business trips if that is something that's valuable to you, right? So I mentioned once a quarter doing something for yourself and having that be part of your lifestyle. I also recommend once a quarter, or at least once every 6 months, twice a year, doing a business trip for your reinvented careers, taking it seriously that way and be like, all right, I need to go to that conference, or I need to go to New York because I got to go meet Chris and we need to record some of these podcast episodes face to face like we did, right? And or maybe you and I need to go to that conference and learn some new techniques and tools, right? Skill building that are relevant for what we're trying to do here, So you got to start looking at it that way. And this is very revealing for people when they hear this. Yeah. Oh, I need to start recreating some of the things that I was doing in the past that were good, actually. And I need to bring that into the now. And it kind of like raises the energy a little bit. It raises the stature a little bit. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I am doing this and I am traveling doing it. And that counts. Okay.
You
I'm
know what
not here
this
to tell you
is?
that doesn't count. Yeah.
What you're saying is be the CEO of your own life and
Right.
your career,
Boom. Yeah.
right? Because that is a CEO type activity. Is if you're sitting there and you're just in your house and you're working away and you don't have this idea of I'm going to go connect with people in the conference and intentionally create community around what I'm doing, that's a very line level employee mentality. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when you're out here and you're hanging your own shingle and you're going to be the CEO, CEOs think big. CEOs think about connections. The CEOs are the ones who send you to all those conferences. So it's really about looking at it through that lens to say, nuance of it is you might not know exactly what you're going to get from that work trip or that conference. You want to have some ideas around why it makes sense to do it so it's not totally frivolous, but it's actually this bigger picture thinking of, I might not know exactly what the ROI is of, for me, going to the International Coaching Federation meetings in NYC. Who says I don't talk about New York that way. I don't know why I said it that way. It's New York City.
Instead, man,
Nobody says
on
NYC.
camera.
That's the paddle tennis of pickleball for me. No, but I might go to that conference and I might go to that meetup not knowing exactly what's going to come from it. But honestly, Todd, every time I've ever done something like that where I'm like, I don't know exactly what's going to come from it, something always comes from it. You don't know what it is, but you put yourself in the place to make a connection and a connection comes.
That's right.
So it really is that higher level CEO field vision that we're trying to inspire around this topic of being connected.
That's right, man. I love it. And I want to kind of come full circle here and give like one final really important piece to this puzzle, right? And again, if you made it to this way in the conversation, I really, want you to be thinking about these activities and starting to do this now. This is not the time to think, oh, once I get there, then I'll be able to. No, like be the CEO now. That's the opportunity. That's why this is exciting. But at the end of the day, we're still working. Like you and I spend a lot of time on Zoom together. We run an online community, right? And like we're on this computer a lot. Okay, so I don't want to get away from the fact that still with all these things of getting out and going to cafes and playing paddle tennis and going on work trips and going to Josh Retreat, whatever you might do, your versions of that are, at the end of the day, we're still here. And the JEDI trick of this is when you're doing these calls, like you and I get on the phone with each other or you get on the community, don't just go right into the business, okay? Spend some time personally getting to know people, okay? And this is so huge that people don't realize that for some reason, not being in an office or in a physical environment creates this extremely transactional atmosphere where you get on a Zoom call, everyone is 30 minutes, and you get on like, okay, let's go jump right in. Here's the laundry list of things we need to do. Don't do that. Don't play that game, okay? You and I, when we get on the call, like I know you really well. I know a lot about your life. You know a lot about mine because we talk. I'm interested in you as a human. And just because we're on Zoom a lot and I'm in LA and you're in New York doesn't disallow me, from getting to know you as a person. And I think that's why we have a good podcast because we have rapport with each other and we get to know each other and we care. Be that person, be that version of you. These calls that you get on with prospects, it could be with anyone, build rapport, be really curious about the people, like have those conversations that are more personal. All that other stuff is great, but also these Zoom calls and these calls that we do are important. And so you want to build that in. And by the way, you do it because you're human, but you also do it because that's actually what's going to get you to reinvented success faster. It's the relationships that matter. It's how you cultivate those relationships. And when you actually are curious and you care about others and you want to know about them, then they want to know about you. And guess what? Then when it's time for an ask, then when it's time for, hey, would you buy my consulting? Hey, would you, connect me with that person or whatever it is that you need to do as you're going out there, you've created a culture where people want to help you and you want to help others and you're going to get yeses. And so you want to build that culture now. And I think a lot of people run away from that, Chris, where these Zoom calls and this culture that we're in, it's just so transactional. But no, this is an opportunity right here, right now, to like be human and to connect with somebody and share yourself and try to understand them. That's a big piece of this.
This reminds me of when leaving corporate, the idea of throwing the baby out with the bathwater of, well, everything about my corporate situation was bad, so I'm not going to do. Corporate is so rife with Zoom or Teams or video calls. And I think to your point, Todd, when we used to all be going to sit down in the conference room together, you bump into somebody in the doorway and you start talking about soccer practice or whatever it is, and it's just more naturally social. But these video calls, it's everybody's running up to the very end of the hour and then starting the next one 1 second later. There's no commute time, and it's like bang, 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 bang. I just want to remind everyone and myself that technology is essentially neutral. It's in how we use technology, right? So when we use it in that transactional way in the corporate setting, for me, that causes almost physical pain. It's so stressful. You're just so tight and you're just like, But Todd, you and I are creating a business, or we've created a business that only exists because of technology. That's what connected us initially. And we were 100 days into building this thing before we met each other personally, right? It's a miracle, actually. It's a miracle, our ability to connect with people across the planet that have similar interests, or that could be our partners, our collaborators, our customers. So yeah, it might be annoying to deal with this technology and to click into all these meetings, but I think also, like, let's be appreciative of this miracle of connectivity that is available to us, that people, 20 years ago, no one had anything like this.
Huge mindset shift. As you were speaking, you know what I was thinking about? I've been doing coaching work, this kind of work, for a long time, mostly on Zoom, in groups, one-on-one. And I just started to get flashbacks of like really beautiful moments of people transforming or having some success or some realization, tears flowing, or whatever it might be. And a lot of these people that I've been working with, some of them for years and years, some in our community right now, Chris, that now, that have been around me personally for years, I've never met them physically, but we've developed such rapport and connection. Like, I feel like I know a lot of these people. It's a miracle. You're right. Like, this thing is a miracle. And I think it's how we use it is our choice. And so if you're looking at getting on a Zoom call as an opportunity to connect, as an opportunity to share, as an opportunity to grow your business and reinvent yourself and to learn what others need, and you start just like looking at your identity differently, and you just bring it down out of the head and into the body a little bit, right? And we talk a lot about that in our mindset calls, and you just get that, everything changes, You become like, reinvention is an opportunity to be human again. And even on these calls, you could be human, more human, more connected. And I love that. I love that that's where you went with that, because that to me is just such a beautiful point of this.
Just to tack on to that, right? I think for both of us as coaches, most of the coaching I've done has been through Zoom or through video calls. We've talked about this maybe on another episode, but we can spend a little bit more time on this at some point. There is a way to lock in these calls. There is a way to really project your connection with the other person across the distance.
Yep.
And it's different than the way you hold yourself in a physical room with someone. And as coaches, or I'll speak for myself, but I know you do this too, when I'm holding space for somebody who's going through a really difficult moment or they're processing something, there's a way that I'm subtly conveying, truthfully, that I'm connected, that I'm listening, that I'm attuned to them. There's a physicality, there's a way you hold yourself, there's a calmness, there's an openness. I mean, there's little things like, even if someone is having trouble opening up on something in a call, like I almost like physically back up to give them the space to bring it into me. There's probably science around this that I'd love to learn about, right? Around the physicality of how to learn how to communicate your humanness and your deep human connection through this technology. That is a skill, but I think even more important than the skill is rooted in your intention and your positive intention to truly be with the person and make that strong connection.
This is so beautiful. I love what you're sharing, because I've been running these calls for so long. Some of my calls have 40, 50 people on them. I've had a lot of people in a Zoom meeting. And what I've also noticed is that my ability to read the room, and I mean the Zoom room, is like really developed. I can say something and I know by looking in the room, obviously when the video is on, when people are really connected and into what I'm saying, and when they're like checked out. I think what you're saying is cool, because like we can get better at this thing, and that really helps, because then I can start to cater what I'm saying to people on a Zoom call that really gets them more present and gives them what they want or need. It's very real. It's like very quantum entanglement stuff, right? What is this connection that we have? What is this technology? I love this conversation. And I think that we could go on and on around it. But I just want to say, man, that, even doing these calls, like I feel very connected with you and our audience while we're doing it. And our intention is that you're getting value out of this, like that you're getting practical things that you can do to accelerate your reinvention. And you're thinking about your life from a holistic, long-term lens, thinking, all right, these guys are right. What can I do right now with my life, with my work, with my money making that is just going to be extraordinary and exciting and motivating for me to do? This time we have is a blip in the matrix. And most of the people that are attracted to our conversations are, let's be honest, like probably around halfway through this thing. I'm 52, but that's the thing. Let's just like realize that and let's reinvent and go for it. And the other thing that's happening, Chris, on this podcast is we're starting to interview people, and we're going to be doing more of that over the coming weeks and months, because while a lot of what we talk about is personal stuff of what you need to do to reinvent, motivating and like tactics and all that, it's also, we got to start thinking about like, where is it all going? Like, what's the future of work look like?
Yep.
And I know we're going to be interviewing Bill Gurley soon, who's like a huge technologist, like investor in Uber, major guy in Silicon Valley. And he's writing a book around this. And we'll be interviewing him and a lot of other people to talk about like, well, where's the puck going? So yes, we're reinventing, but like, what should I be working on? So I think we're going to be bringing more of that into these conversations, because it's not just the personal, it's also how are we relating to what's evolving in the space as well. So definitely follow us along. I love this podcast. I love doing it. It's relevant. I think it's like a really important conversation for the times you're living in, and I love doing it with you, man. It's just been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. But I think that's for this episode, and tune in for the next one. And we can't wait to get to know you.
The moment I break